Hello guys, how's it going? My name is Dalaran, and it's time to cover what mages are looking like in the Shadowlands. A lot of you guys play mages over in Battle for Azeroth, but how do they hold up going into the brand new expansion? Now, mages is a class that hasn't gotten too many buffs or nerfs. It hasn't gotten some changes, and we'll cover those that are new, and we'll mostly skim over the stuff that is the same. The majority of the stuff is going to be mostly the same. We are in level 53 character, which is highest level available right now on the alpha, with a very low item level, so the stats are going to be just all over the place and not going to be great at all. However, this isn't the finalist version of Mage, this is just the alpha. There's probably going to be changes to come. Number tuning isn't perfect, but we want to still take a look at where the spec is at right now. How is it looking so far? We're going to be taking a look at mages in the order of Frost, Fire, and Arcane, just to go from bottom up for this video. And we are going to be taking a look at class-based abilities and spec-based abilities. Class-based abilities means all specs share those abilities. Then there's spec-based abilities that are just for that spec. Take a look at the talents, a little bit of gameplay. We will cover everything that is new. I will skim over stuff that is exactly the same. I will take a note on the changes, but numbers I'm not going to dwell into too hard on, because Blizzard eventually does the balance tuning for numbers later in the alpha beta cycles. We're just going to take a look at what's new and what changed. Starting off with the class abilities, we have Arcane Explosion, Fire Blast, Frostbolt are available for all specs in the game, so Blizzard is trying to kind of give all abilities back. Maybe there could be more abilities that Blizzard could give from other specs back to, you know, the class-based ability. I think like Flame Strike would be kind of cool, just because they used to have it back in the day. It really wouldn't be that useful, but for like a Fire or Arcane Mage to be able to drop a Flame Strike to see if you could find rogues, I think stuff like that could be cool. You know, there's what abilities would you suggest for Blizzard to give back to the base class abilities that are right now on a spec basis? Anyway, let's take a look at all these abilities. Arcane Explosions in the game, it is basically the same as the Arcane Mage one. It costs quite a bit of mana every time you use it. It's pretty mana expensive, but it does work and does do decent damage in an AoE scenario if you need instant cast setup. Arcane Intellect is also still in the game. It has been changed to 5% of Intellect buff. Same thing happened to the Priest buff and the Warrior buff, so the attack power buff and the stamina buff are also 5%. They did that to all the other buffs as well. So I wouldn't really feel too bad. This isn't much as a nerf. They just really adjusted this buff for every other spec as well. Blink is still in the game, 15-second cooldown. Conjure Refreshment to create food for your allies. Counterspell is still in the game. Fire Blast, reduced by haze, does quite a bit of damage on an instacast. I actually wonder if that'll be part of someone else's base rotation. Fire Ward and Ice Frost Ward are back in the game from the, I think, vanilla WoW days actually. They share a cooldown though, so you can only have one at a time, but when you pop it, you get a shield. It's a little bit extra, only frost or fire absorption. Does not stack with your ice bears, so you can actually double up on shields. This will be really good in PvP, certain dungeons and raid situations. Frost Nova is still in the game, 30-second cooldown, freeze the enemies around you. Frostbolt is a baseline ability for all specs, but it is the bread and butter for Frost. Ice Block is still in the game as your one immunity. Mirror Images make a return. You can just have them baseline, summon your images, and they'll fight for you. They last 40 seconds. They used to be a talent, but nobody ever picks them. So now you can have images that will do quite a bit of damage. I mean, my Frostbolt does how much damage? My Frostbolt does about 500 crit, 265 or so. Yeah, Frostbolt does about 265, 300. These guys all together basically do Frostbolts, your Frostbolts with the fit. So this will be really good for burst, I think. It's just always a fun ability. It'll be cool for questing and leveling. I've always enjoyed the idea behind it, but yeah, let me just get rid of all this icicles above my head real quick. So yeah, having these guys as a baseline since nobody picks it as a viable talent, I think it's probably the best thing ever. If it's a talent that no one picks, you might as well make it base. Take a look at more abilities for mages. We have Polymorph still to sheep enemies. Portals are still in the game. Remove Curse is what you'll be doing inside of raids, dungeons, and PvP. Slowfall for a little bit extra Slowfall. Spell Steal to steal some of the most powerful buffs inside of dungeons and raids from very powerful enemies. Teleport for your allies. Time Warp to buff everybody else around your group, party, or raid. With the Bloodlust buff essentially, and Alter Time makes a return at a level 58. We're not at the highest level, so we can't even learn Alter Time yet, but it's a minute long cooldown. Alters the Fabric of Time, returning you to current location, and health when you cast a second time or after 10 seconds. Effect negated by a long distance or death. This will be huge for certain dungeon situations and mostly PvP situations since it gives you back health. However, we are not sure, and it doesn't look like Alter Time can give you back buffs. I'm pretty sure as a Fire Mage you won't be able to pop Combustion, Alter Time to get it rolling. Get a bunch of Pyroblast, Fire Blast in, then after the end of Combustion, Alter Time returns you back with all your buffs. I'm pretty sure it just returns you with the same health. So you would use this as a defensive, or if you need mobility to return back to the same area. But in PvP, this would be huge. I mean, 10-second window of like, hey, if you pop cooldowns into me, I'll just return back to where I was. That's going to be tough to lock mages down, which is going to make them feel tankier because they could use the Alter Time ability to just return. I wonder if they can do it through stuns or CC. I think they cannot, but still, it's going to be really big in PvP. Alright, let's take a look at the spec-based abilities for Frost Mage. We will have to adjust some of the talents in order to show you guys all the base abilities, but here they are. You still have Blizzard. Blizzard is going to do a bit of frost damage. We do have to talent out of one of these to go Ice Ward, so you will still have that 50% slow for 3 seconds. Each time Blizzard deals damage, the cooldown of Frozen Orb is reduced by half a second. Cold Snap is still in the game at a 5-minute cooldown. Resets the cooldown of your Ice, Barrier, Frost, Nova, Cone of Cold, and Ice Block, so it's the same. Cone of Cold will still have a 70% slow at a 12-second cooldown with a bit of frost damage. Flurry has been changed a little bit. Unleash a flurry of ice striking on the target 3 times, so it's the same. Brain Freeze proc will give it Winter's Chill effect, making the target act as if it has frozen on it. So essentially, this is what it looks like. It's a little bit hard to explain because I was trying to figure out like the best way to put it, but I gotta get a Brain Freeze proc. Got a Brain Freeze proc, we throw Flurry. Then we will have a debuff now, which is Chill. Taking damage from Mage's abilities will count as frozen. So they changed it mostly because of Mages used to do this thing where they would get Brain Freeze proc, Flurry into like a Ice Lance, Blink, Shimmer, Ice Lance, and they could like squeeze in 2 or 3 or more than they originally could of those Ice Lances to get even more damage on the enemy. And with Flurry, it also had this like range thing. You had to have a minimum range in order to benefit from its frosty frozen effect. So Blizzard decided to put it as a debuff on the enemy. I don't know if it'll change the playstyle at all, but it should make the playstyle and the range thing and the blinky thing less necessary and make this ability and the freeze effect more consistent. Frozen Orb is still in the game. Hits 8 enemies, so look at the target cap. Blizzard has no target cap. Lots of classes get a target cap now. Frozen Orb will have an 8 enemy target cap that it passes through. Grants the charge of Finger Frost. Enemies slowed by Frozen Orb as it does frosty damage to them, or reduced by 30%. Then we have Ice Barrier, which is going to give you a shield on a minute cooldown. Melee attack sequence to reduce your attack with movement speed, so that's the same as live. Ice Lance does a bit of frost damage. It also does frost damage to nearby target, but that's because of a talent of splitting ice. Make freezing rain do this, and that will do it. Yep, no more split. Ice Lance damage is tripled against frozen targets. We have Icy Veins, which is a 3-minute cooldown. Gives you 30% haste for 20 seconds, preventing damage and delaying haste and preventing damage from delaying your spell cast. That is such a I don't know why I had such a hard time pronouncing that, but it prevents damage from delaying your cast, is what I was trying to say. Invisibility on a 5-minute cooldown. After 3 seconds, you actually go invisible. Still the same as live, still has the same like duration of like popped it. Okay, wait, 1, 2, 3. Now I'm invisible. Compared to Arcane, which is still insta. Summon Water Elemental will still have you Water Ellie. He still has the freeze ability, so you'll be able to combo that together in dungeons and PvP. Brain Freeze procs is still in the game. Frostbolt has a 30% chance to empower your next flurry, make an instant cast, deal 50% increased damage, apply Winter's Chill. We talked about what Winter's Chill was. Fingers of Frost still in the game. Frostbolt has a 15% chance, and Frozen Orb has a 10% chance to grant you charge of Fingers of Frost. Fingers of Frost causes the next Ice Lance to deal damage as if the target were frozen, maximum 2 charges. Master Icicles, casting Frostbolt or Flurry grants you an Icicle. Casting Ice Lance causes all your icicles stored to begin launching an enemy for frost damage equal to your mastery. Up to 5 icicles can be stored. Any excess icicles will be automatically launched. Increases damage of Frozen Orb by 0%. Should be a number based on mastery, but right now it doesn't work. Shatter multiplies your critical strike chance of your spells against frozen targets by 1.5 and adds an additional 50% critical strike chance. Then we have rank 2 Cold Snap, which will unlock at level 54. Cooldown reduced by 30 seconds. So it goes from a 5 minute to 4.5 minutes. That's kind of nice. Icy Veins rank 2 at level 56, duration increased by 3 seconds. So it goes from a 20-second duration to 23. I guess it's kind of nice too, when every global challenge is having slightly longer duration could be nice. Maybe this will have synergy with talents. Speaking of talents, we have ourselves level 15 row, Bone Chilling. Same as live, with your abilities that are frost, going to be applying debuff on the enemy. Lonely Winter, drop that water elemental to get yourself more Ice Lance, Frostbolt, and flurry damage by 25%. Or Ice Nova for that frosty effect, extra freeze, great in PvP, fairly short cooldown. Level 25 is not too different, Glacial Installation is the same. Ice Barrier gives you extra armor, and Ice Buck provides a free Ice Barrier. You have Ice Flows, which you'll be probably using a lot more this expansion, and I'll explain in a bit. It can be used mid-cast or before a cast in order to make your next cast or current cast castable while moving. So being able to, and this is obviously CD2, so you can kind of weave into your spell cast. You'll probably be using this to adjust your positional as a Frost Mage in this expansion. Because Shiver, 20-second cooldown, so it takes your blink from a 15-second to a 20, can be used casting while spells, but now only has one charge. That's going to be huge for mobility of mages, but every mage is hit by this. So this isn't just a Frost Mage thing or anything, but not being able to have all that mobility, especially in PvP, is gonna hurt. I would say it's gonna hurt quite a bit as a Frost Mage. I'm trying to get Elemental to reposition a little bit. There we go. Yeah, Shimmer being nerfed is gonna be quite a toughie. I think Ice Flow is gonna be the more of a play for Frost Mage. You still might play Shimmer in some occasions, but only one charge of Shimmer is gonna be weird. Maybe Blizzard will reverse this. Level 30, we have still same encounter slow. Damage cycles between 20% buff to 4%, back and forth every 10 seconds, or Rune of Power, drop a rune that'll empower your character, 40% extra damage, or Focus Magic. This one is interesting. You can apply Focus Magic on your elemental, and every time he crits, you'll get a 5% buff. If he will do it here, maybe? He was doing it earlier. He does crit sometimes. I thought he'd never crit, and I thought it never worked. But he eventually will crit. So this one is going to be kind of weird. It's a 5% crit for an ally, so it's spell crit. So you'll apply this for healers, and here we go. I got my own 5% buff. So you'll apply it for anybody that's a spellcaster, and it'll give them 5% crit chance. If they crit, it gives you 5% crit chance. So essentially, if they crit a lot, like a Holy Paladin or Shaman, really any caster like a Destro Warlock, that play around crit, you'll have 100% crit uptime almost. This is nice, but I don't know if 5% crit is better than anywhere between 20% damage increase and 4% damage increase, or on a lineup 40% damage increase when needed on a 2 charges 40-second recharge. It's going to be really hard to find out which one of these is really better. At level 35 we have Frozen Touch, which makes your Fingers of Frost and Brain Freeze 20% more often. Chain Reaction, your Ice Lance against a frozen target, increase the damage of your Ice Lance by 3% for 10 seconds, stacking up to 5 times. Or Ebb and Bolt, fire a bolt of frosty damage, used to be Frost and Shadow back in the day, and granting you a free Brain Freeze as well. In a level 40 row, Frigid Winds, Ice Ward, and Ring of Frost, exactly the same as live. You'll still probably be running Frigid Winds for the extra slow. Level 45, Freezing Rain will make your Blizzard insta-cast and deal 50% more damage for 12 seconds. Still, same as live with Splitting Ice, 80% damage increase, or 80% damage cleave with 5% damage increase for Ice Lance and Icicle. Same as live. Common Storm does a bunch of frost damage, same as live. And I'm actually getting this buff quite a lot, actually. If my LD crits, this is quite good. And if I'm going through and I'm getting flurry procs, he actually will consume your flurry procs, which is a little weird, but if he crits, I guess extra crit for you isn't a bad thing whatsoever. I mean, 22% crit. If you get enough crit, I mean, Frost Mage essentially just critting all the time, so maybe this could be actually really good. You know, almost 100% crit uptime on things. Level 50, Thermal Void, still same as live, extends duration of your Icy Veins, and your Icy Veins extended further, which with every Ice Lance against a frozen target. So essentially, when they crit with procs, you have Ray of Frost, where channel Icy Beam of the enemy does a bunch of frost damage, scales up in damage, makes the enemy slower and slower and slower, generates 2 charges of Fingers of Frost over its duration. Or Glacial Spike, which is going to combine all your icicles together into one big spike and spike the enemy for a bunch of damage. Makes it so Ice Lance no longer launches icicles. Ray of Frost is now 1.3 minute cooldown. I don't know if that changed. In terms of cooldowns, I think everything else is the same. Ray of Frost might be a little bit different. I'm not sure if it's like that on live, but then again, nobody really uses Ray of Frost, unless you primarily PvP, and I don't know what the cooldown of this ability is. But this is essentially Frost Mage and all your talents and abilities. The playstyle for Frost Mage is very base. I mean, if you're playing Frost Mage right now in the Battle for Azeroth, you have yourself a fairly simple playstyle. I mean, what can you really say, right? Just gonna pop whole full cooldowns in the opener. And you're gonna go trying to get as many icicles built up. We need ourselves a flurry proc, so we're going to Ebon Bolt into Glacial Spike, flurry, big crits. Oh, we also gotta get images up and running. I forgot about those. But yeah, actually there is a talent that is wrong here. I have Freezing Rain, but it's okay. We'll just roll with Freezing Rain for now. But essentially, you're just trying to go either for big Glacial Spike procs, or you're trying to go for other spells. Oh, look how tall I am compared to my images. They're so tiny. But I'm pretty sure I need to Bloodlust them too. I don't think they have Bloodlust. But essentially, the playstyle for Frost Mage isn't going to be all that different whatsoever. You're still going to be doing the same thing whether you're playing Glacial Spike or non-Glacial Spike build. Because I would say that the essences and traits from Battle for Azeroth, for Frost Mage in particular, don't actually affect its gameplay too heavily. Right? It's still going to do decent damage, but you never really had traits that change your playstyle altogether, like Master Blaster for Frost Mages, for example, right? You never really had anything like that. So I would say Frost Mage feels, yeah, it's very just base. It's essentially just a base mage. I guess it should be Poppin' Blizzard since I do have an empowered version of that. But yeah, I think Frost Mage is going to be the safe spec that people are going to stick to in PvE. It has a lot of AoE damage, has a very simple single target playstyle. If the other two specs don't really pan out, the Frost Mage is going to be the safe choice. But let's take a look at the other two specs, see how they change. We do have Arcane and Fire to get to. When it comes to a Fire Mage, in your basic class abilities, there's nothing new. So we can actually skip over that completely. You get Arcane Explosion, Frostbolt, if you need to kite someone in PvP. For fire-based abilities, we have Blazing Barrier, which again also will stack with your Fire Ward as well. It'll give you an absorb and do some damage when enemies attack you. Combustion is still there, 2-minute cooldown for 10 seconds. You have a 100% crit chance, and it still looks amazing as an animation. Just set yourself completely on fire. I think it looks awesome. But 100% crit chance and 50% of your crit is also added to Mastery. Castable while casting other spells, so you can use it as an off GCD. Probably still the only ability that's off GCD, and that's why Fire feels so good to play. You can just kind of line up your burst a little bit easier. Still have Dragon's Breath on an 18-second cooldown. I think they did change it from maybe 20, so they gave you a slightly shorter cooldown, or longer from a 15-second. Somebody on the stream said that this might have a longer cooldown, but I'm not quite sure. Somebody in chat will confirm though. Damage will cancel effect. Enemies are still disoriented. Fire Blast, I have it at rank 3. I guess you eventually can get it to rank 3. I don't know if there's any higher ranks of that at all. No, there isn't. So I don't really know what rank 1 and rank 2 is supposed to be. Maybe it's the amount of charges. But I have 3 charges because of a talent, but it will still do 100% crit, and it will always be used in order to get you into all those hot streak procs like you use on live. Fireball is a basic filler. Flame Strike is your AoE, can also be instacast with your heating up procs. Invisibility, 3 seconds, and then you pop Invis. You have still Pyroblast, which will be your big spender for all your instacast fire crits. You will have Scorch for casting while movement, so you'll still probably be the most mobile class with so many instacast abilities. Cauterizes you 1 defensive, fatal damage which brings you to 35% health, and burns you for 28% of your health over 6 seconds. While burning, movement, flowing effects are suppressed, and your movement speed increased by 150. Cannot occur more than every 5 minutes. Critical Mass is a passive. Your spells have a 50% increased chance to deal a critical strike. You gain 10% more of crit stat from all sources. Rank 2 Fireball. Every time you fireball and it fails to crit, gives a stacking buff, and eventually your fireballs will crit, so you'll be able to go for the heating up procs. Hot Streak. Getting 2 direct damage critical strikes in a row with fire spells will make an Expire Blast or Flame Strike spell instant cast and cause double the normal ignite damage. What that means is, since it's all about fire damage, you could essentially Frostbolt. Whether it crits or not, it doesn't disrupt your heating up procs. So essentially, you could have a different filler that does less damage than your Fireball. But in PvP, for example, you could change things up a little bit. That's what it means. So if you use abilities like Frostbolt or Arcane Explosion, it won't screw up your playstyle. Master is still the same. Your target burns for additional damage over 9 seconds. Damage is going to be based on your Fireball, Fire Blast, Scorch, Pyroblast, Meteor, and Flame Strike, and other abilities if you talent. This effect is reapplied and remaining damage will be added to the new Ignite. Fire Blast causes your Ignites to spread to 8 nearby enemies, so Fire Mages will be able to snap their fingers, spread that Ignite with Fire Blast, and have a direct guarantee that it will spread. Normally you would have to kind of wait for your Mastery to spread over time as a cleave, but now you can use it more directly as a way to spread your dots to an AoE damage to make Fire Mage a little more consistent in AoE, because right now they kind of have to burst everything down on a single enemy with a bunch of procs and cooldowns and hope that Mastery spreads and just kind of tunnel one enemy, but you can now control it a little bit better, which I think is going to be probably good for the spec. I don't think I'd ever struggled in AoE department before, but I guess it should be better. In terms of caps on AoE, I think that's the only ability that has a cap. It spreads to 8 enemies as soon as you hit Fire Blast. Then you can get Pyroblast rank 2, deals additional damage over time, which I guess it normally does have a damage over a certain amount of time, but I guess it doesn't now. Isn't that a trait or something? But anyway, they're adding that extra dot, which will go into your Ignite. In Combustion rank 2, increase the duration by 2 seconds, so it'll go from a 10-second duration to a 12, giving you a little bit extra time to get all your Fire Blast, Pyroblasts in there. But talents, Fire Mages are really not all that different, just like Frost Mage. Level 15 still has Fire Starter, which will give you crits on enemies that are pretty healthy. Searing Touch for those enemies that are not looking healthy, so your Scorches can do more damage than 100% crits. Or Pyromaniac just to give you random crits and random moments for not consuming Healing Streak, so you can just sometimes maybe get a bunch of Pyroblasts back to back. Level 25 row, we have Blazing Soul, which on Blink gives you Blazing Barrier. Blaster, which has his damage buffed a little, but we don't know if it's going to be that good. And Shimmer, still 1 charge. So again, mobility is still going to be the most mobile mage. Level 30, Enchantress Flow, Focus Magic, and Rune of Power. You still probably end up using Rune of Power with Meteor, but I kind of like Enchantress Flow recently. I also like Paraclasm more than Meteor, but your Focus Magic could still be good for the crit chance. For Frost Mage, Mage could actually be good because during your combustion, that crit does go into your Mastery. It has a feedback loop, but I still think Enchantress Flow or Rune of Power might still be better. Focus Magic seems like a good idea. Maybe it should just be based on for the spec, just because I don't think it's competitive, but it's a really, really cool spell. Level 35, we have Flame On to increase extra charges of Fire Blast, but since we don't play Master Blaster anymore, do you need extra Fire Blast? Or can you go for Phoenix Flames? 3 charges, 30-second recharge, does damage and cleaves. Could actually be good, finally, because we don't no longer have the full Blaster Master playstyle. Or maybe go for something like Alex Shaz of Fury. I doubt it. I think Phoenix Flames might still be a little bit better, but could be an actual choice in this row. Level 40, we have Frenetic Speed. I get this one wrong every time. I always call it Frantic Speed. Casting Scorch increases your movement speed by 3 seconds. By 30% for 3 seconds. Ice Word for 2 charges of Frost Nova or Ring of Frost with its own slow incapacitate effect, just like Frost. Level 45, same row as live. Flame Patch to leave a patch on the ground over 8 seconds. Conflagration to give a little bit extra dot damage that will kind of cleave. And Living Bomb. Does this have a cap? It does not, so it's one more class without a cap on how many enemies you're hitting. Same as live. Kindling will give you on Fireball, Pyroblast, Fire Blast, and Phoenix Flames critical strikes. Reduces the remaining cooldown of combustion by 1.5 seconds. So you can still play the Minute Mage if you want to play that. Pyroclasm is what I actually enjoy. I kind of like this idea. I never get to play around with a legendary that had the Pyroclasm back in Legion because I didn't really play Mage that much and never got lucky with the legendary. But I always like this playstyle. Consuming Hot Streak has a 50% chance to make a next non-instant Pyroblast within 15 seconds, deal bunch more damage, maximum 2 stacks. Been enjoying that whenever it comes to world PvP, or not world PvP, but like world leveling whatnot, because nobody's really has war mode on, because nobody can get to Stormwind or Agrimar to turn on war mode to actually have world PvP in the alpha. Then we also have Meteor. Meteor, 45-second cooldown, calls down a Meteor, which lands at a target location, does a bunch of damage, split evenly amongst enemies, and then it has burning damage over time, so same as live. But I guess the Fire Mages, what can you really say? The playstyle is mostly the same. We're going to go for a full setup here with full damage. Just get a bunch of Fire Blasts in there. Go for a big old Pyro while combustion is on, and it's actually going to hit. Yeah, it is. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, we got some big damage. Probably should have made a Rune of Power, honestly. It's okay. But yeah, Fire Mage is still going to be a spec that will do a lot of damage. Compared to the playstyle that it has right now on live, the spec, well, at least on the alpha, hits quite hard. Arcane Mage hits quite hard when you get a setup with all your arcane charges and cooldowns. Frost Mage can hit enemies quite hard with procs and has really good kite potential. Fire Mage just hits hard. It just hits hard. You don't really need to run away from the enemy. I mean, sometimes you'll need to breath them, Nova, and then kite them a little bit. But for the most part, as long as you get in your procs for Pyroblast, the spec hits really, really hard. But the damage numbers are going to be adjusted in the future anyway. It's not like that matters. But it feels really good to play. It's essentially just a base version of a Fire Mage from way back in the day. Let me pop a Rune of Power so I can get myself a big hit with it. Make sure to get my Healing Up proc, double Pyro in there. Yeah, but the spec itself just doesn't feel all that different. It's essentially going to be a non-Master Blaster Mage, which I kind of miss because everybody plays Master Blaster and everybody plays the bracers from Mechagon, and if you don't have those bracers, it's a little bit, it feels like you're missing out on a bit of the experience, and essentially you are, because you're not playing the good playstyle of the mage that everybody else plays. But I kind of like this playstyle of mage, man. I actually really, really like it. I kind of almost prefer it. Because, I don't know, I always like the Pyroclasm playstyle. Now I have 2 stacks of Pyroclasm. Oh man, a lot of stacks of Pyroclasm. You're not going to have any crazy Master Blaster juggling. You're just going to go about Pyroblast, Fireblast, Fireballs. So it might feel a little bit boring if you're used to the original playstyle of Mage or the BFA playstyle. But to go back to what Mage kind of was in its core might feel boring for some, but it seems so far effective. That's the biggest thing. Biggest issue going from Battle for Azeroth is if you're losing certain essences or trades that made the spec what it is. But when you strip away the Master Blaster for Fire Mage, it still is a Fire Mage and it's still good. It's not like Warlock with certain traits and essences that feel like you kind of need those in order to be good. Or Shadow Priest where you need gear in order to actually have like some sort of a playstyle that you can play around. Base version of Mage is still, I think, fairly effective. But at least that's in my opinion. It is gonna kind of suck if you're just used to like full on big blast and damage, but go back to the basics with fire, I think isn't bad at all. And lastly, we have Arcane Mage. When it comes to Arcane Mage, all your abilities are gonna be base. You have Fire Blast, you have Frostbolt, you have all the awards, and everything else is the same. When it comes to base arcane abilities, we got a couple new changes, couple new ones. First of all, Arcane Barrage is going to be, well, the same. It does a bit of arcane damage. For each arcane charge, deal more damage, grants 2% of your maximum mana, and hits one additional target. That is actually a higher rank of this spell that I was able to unlock for getting level 20 or 52, I think. So normally this doesn't give you back mana until you unlock it, but since I got a high enough level, it now will grant 2% mana and hits one additional nearby enemy. So being able to play the whole mana spender, mana builder playstyle with Arcane is going to be a little bit easier with Arcane Barrage, I feel. So that's very, very interesting. Arcane Blast is the same as live. It does a bit of arcane damage, scales up for every arcane charge that you have with its mana cost and damage increase, and reduces cast time by 8 seconds per charge. Generates 1 arcane charge. Arcane Missiles launches a wave of arcane missiles at the enemy over 2.3 seconds, causing a total of quite a bit of arcane damage, at least relative to the numbers on the alpha. You'll still be using this during a proc mostly, as it costs quite a bit of mana. Arcane powers changed a lot completely. 3-minute cooldown on a global. For 10 seconds you deal, it's actually is buffed by a talent, so if I were to take it away, you get time anomaly instead. For 10 seconds you deal 30% more spell damage, and the spell costs 30% less mana. 3-minute cooldown though. 3-minute cooldown. It's quite a hefty cooldown. 3 minutes. I think what they're trying to do is make mages very, very similar to one another. So Arcane Mage, Fire Mage, Frost Mage are all going to have either Combustion, Arcane Power, or Icy Veins, and that'll be your big hit. You'll do the most amount of damage during that window, and then you'll just do mediocre or medium damage outside of that. And I think that's essentially what Blizzard's trying to do with Arcane Mages. So yeah, that will make all the specs a little bit closer to one another, so you won't have one spec that has a short cooldown, long cooldown. But this seems a little bit heavy for Arcane, because I felt like the 1.5 minute cooldown I had with Arcane Power felt really good, but maybe they'll adjust the damage, right? Arcane Power will really be able to cooldown, but outside of that, your sustained damage will just be better, numbers-wise, to be competitive with the other specs. If that's how they do it, then I'm okay with it. But we just don't know yet. You also have Conjure Mana Gem. The only spec with Conjure Mana Gem, you'll sacrifice a portion of your mana to create a Mana Gem. When used, it will restore 10% mana and holds 3 charges. So, yeah, I'm surprised they only gave this to Arcane. Don't have this for Frost. Right now in the alpha, you can actually go to Arcane, craft it, go back to Frost or Fire, and you'll still have the Mana Gem if case mana is an issue. On the other specs, it shouldn't be that much of an issue, but I'm thinking they'll adjust that later because I'm pretty sure that's not how that's supposed to work. Imagine before a raid, before a boss fight, you have to spec into Arcane, craft a Mana Gem, spec back into Frost or Fire, and then now you can raid. That will be a little weird. So if Blizzard wants for this to be a base ability for all mages, then put it in class ability. Otherwise, they need to fix the whole it stays on you if you swap specs thing. But I think it fits well for Arcane because Arcane plays with mana heavily while the other specs don't really play with mana that much. And I didn't really see mana as an issue whatsoever with their play styles at all, unless you're just, you know, spamming polymorph for spell steal the whole time and just ooming yourself completely. But it still shouldn't be too much of an issue. But yeah, for Arcane, this seems to be cool because they're adding more for the playstyle of mana. I think it's cool thematically. We have Evocation, which increases mana regen by 6 seconds for quite a lot by 1.5 minute cooldown. Greater invisibility, so you can go invis instantly, 2 minute cooldown, so it's shorter than others. Take 60% reduced damage while invisible, so you'll be using this out of raids or dungeons or PvP as a defensive. Presence of Mind, 1 minute cooldown, it causes your next to Arcane Blast to be instant cast. Prismatic Barrier for a shield, shields you with Arcane Force absorbing damage, reducing magic damage take by 20% for 1 minute. Duration of harmful magic effects against you is reduced by 35. Slow, just to give, you know, a slow on the enemy, 60% slow, 50-second cooldown. Touch of the Magi became a ability instead of a talent, so you'll have a bit more control with it. 45-second cooldown, 1.4 second cast. Applies Touch of the Magi to the current target, accumulating 50% of the damage dealt to that target for 8 seconds, and then exploding for that amount to all nearby enemies, reduce damage to nearby enemies. So in a sense, it has a bit of cleave potential, but it seems to be more of something that you will just use in order to further increase your single target damage with some off cleave, because 2 target cleave, Arcane Mage isn't really good at that, and I guess this would be a way for you to have some 2/3 with singular target focus. We also still have clear casting. Each 100 mana you spend, have a 1% chance to gain clear casting, make your next Arcane Missile or Arcane Explosion free, and channel 20% faster. Then we have Mastery Savant, which is supposed to be adjusted further, but I don't think it's been adjusted yet. Increases mana regen rate and maximum mana, but also Arcane Charges increases the damage of your Arcane Blast by additional damage and Arcane Barrage by extra. So even before, they had a note where it would increase all damage. Like, it would have like Arcane Charges, damage increase, Arcane Blast and Barrage, and also this Mastery increased other damage, but I don't know if they'll actually end up adding it. Maybe it was just a note from before or previous expansions that isn't intended for Shadowlands. We just don't really know. Presence of Mind rank 2 at level 54. You'll have an extra Arcane Blast to store in. So essentially Presence of Mind and then 3 Arcane Blasts can be shot back to back to back. Arcane Power at rank 2 increases duration by 5 extra seconds from a 10-second duration, which is going to be good for that, 3-minute cooldown. Looking at the Arcane Mage talents, we have first row is the same as live. Amplification, giving you extra missiles to fire during clear cast. Rule of 3, which is what I play with. Your 4th Arcane Missile is going to, or your 3rd Arcane Charge, the next cost of your Arcane Blast or Missile is going to be reduced by 100. Arcane Blast or Arcane Missiles? Really? I didn't know this applied to Arcane Missiles. They need to make it apply also to a Arcane Explosion. I think it'll be really good for mana. But this, I think, is intended to be a single target talent either way, or Arcane Familiar for extra maximum mana, and an Arcane Familiar that does some damage. I don't ever run it. I don't know if anybody actually plays this at all. Level 25, you have Mana Shield to make Prismatic Barrier no cooldown, but absorbs damage and loses mana every time it absorbs. Slipstream, so you can move while casting missiles, or while Evocation, or Shimmer on a 1 charge. So you also don't have a back blink, as what you notice with Arcane Mage. You can blink forwards, right? But you don't have that reverse blink anymore. I usually have it right here on the F bar or on the F key, but press F for, I guess, yeah, let's get some Fs for the reverse blink, whatever you call it. Level 30, we have Incanter's Flow, so it cycles back and forth like the other mages. Ruined Power for big blast and damage, which I think is going to be the go-to for Ruined Power or Focus Magic. In level 35, we have Resonance, so it is the same as life. Arcane Barrage deals more damage per enemy it hits. charged up to grant immediate arcane charges on a 40-second cooldown or supernova 25-second cooldown. Does a bit of arcane damage to enemies around, knocking them up. Primary target takes 100% more damage. Level 40 Chrono Shift. Arcane Barrage slows the enemies and increases your movement speed by a hefty amount. It's quite nice moving around with this. Ice Ward for 2 Frost Nova charges, or Ring of Frost also with that slow after it expires. Level 45 Reverberate. If Arcane Explosion hits at least 3 targets, it has a 40% chance to get an extra charge, same as life. Another step is a dot that is limited to 1 enemy, deals reduce damage to secondary targets, damage increased by 70% per arcane charge, so this could be decent. I never actually run it in dungeons myself though. This is more of a PvP thing. Or Enlightened, which is a trait that is, since we Touch of the Magi is a basic ability, this is a trait now that was added to the talents. Arcane damage dealt while above 70% mana is increased by 8%. Mana regen while below 70% is increased by 20%. So essentially, if you're playing this, you want to stay above 70% mana anytime you're not going for the full burn phase with your Arcane Mage. Then we have Overpowered level 50, which is going to be the same in a row. Arcane Power damage is increased by 60, reducing mana cost by 60. Time Anomaly, at any moment you have a chance to gain Arcane Power for 8 seconds. Evocation for 1 second or 4 charges. I honestly think this might be better if we are going for a more sustained playstyle. It's very randomized, but we'll see. Or Arcane Orb for the full AoE experience. Grants 1 Arcane Charge when cast, and every time it deals damage. Another thing that's been a bit of a complaint with Arcane Mage is every ability, like your Arcane Power, your Rune Power, your Charged Up, even your Mirror Images if you can be using those, and all the other abilities that have to do with your Covenant abilities. All those are on a cooldown. So all GCDs, all are on GCD is what I meant to say. Nothing is off GCD. So it's a little bit weird. It's kind of awkward. Because basically your opener is going to be 4 seconds of just setup. So a lot of people are not really happy with that with Arcane Mage. Where Fire Mage on the other side has your off GCD Cataclysm, so you can set it up, or Combustion. You would set up all your cooldowns and start going to rotation, off GCD Combustion, and start flinging your Fire Blast into the enemy. Or like Frost, you will have maybe like not as much of a setup, but your biggest setup is going to be Icy Veins. I don't know. The Arcane Mage right now, in terms of the actual like real gameplay, when you're really trying to prep, there's just so many abilities that are going to be buffs, and you'll essentially, for a best playstyle, looks like you'll want to get anything that buffs you, but all those buffs are a short duration. So to make sure you're getting the most abilities while all those buffs are present, it comes down to like 2 Arcane Blasts. So Blizzard needs to fix Arcane, I think. It's so many abilities stacked together. Maybe it'll force people to play more passive traits or passive talents or passive Covenant abilities in order to not have so many things stacked on one another. But I guess we'll just have to wait and see how it plays. So the spec plays very similarly as it normally would. We're going to go Rune of Power. We'll go for full charge, grant full Touch of the Magi on the enemy, and start just Arcane Blasting. I kind of did it in a little bit weird direction, honestly. I could have done that slightly differently. And then we're just going to continue blasting. We have the mana gems in order to give us a little bit extra mana, putting that on cooldown immediately. And now we're going to the burn phase, where we just do incredible amounts of damage. And then we will go and get back all our mana. I really wish I had the same unit frames as I do on live, because I can actually see percentages and stuff a little bit better mana-wise, but I think it's about here-ish is good. Yeah, and essentially what you'll want to do if you're playing with the Enlightened buff is try to maintain yourself above 70% mana as best as possible. I wonder, again, as this mage, as like with Frost, I wonder if you'll ever use Fire Blast ever. And Touch of the Magi is going to be something interesting to also add into rotation. You'll basically just store up a bunch of damage. And I wonder if it'll be ever useful to use it in single target. I mean, during burst, I can imagine using Touch of the Magi during burst. But I wonder if that'll be something you'll want to use regularly. It's interesting. I like that they have it. It's nice for cleave. But I do wonder if it'll be something people will be using regularly. The effect doesn't feel terrible. The only thing that is weird is not having your Arcane Power up often enough. Because right now on BFA, you can really combo the 1.5 minute cooldown of Arcane Power with other essences and traits and get some real big damage out of it. It's quite enjoyable. For the most part, the spec doesn't really feel all that different. I really do like Arcane, actually. I I think the specs still could use few more abilities. I like the fact that they're giving anything to them, like Touch of the Magi. I'm glad that they're giving more stuff, you know? Having images is awesome. Having managems is awesome. I'm not against it. Triple instacast with Arcane Blast while Presence of Mind is up. Thank you. Yes, please. It is going to be interesting. I think what they're trying to do is trying to make mages more similar to one another by making them all about long cooldowns and limit which one has more mobility, less mobility, to make them very, very similar to one another. What would be cool, and I think would be optimal, is if essentially all mages were very similar, very, very close to one another, and that it was very, very difficult to say which one is obviously better than another, you know? Like, if you're so close that essentially you can play whatever playstyle you want, and you won't get kicked from groups because you're not playing the right playstyle. If Blizzard can achieve this close enough, then that'd be cool. Because then I would love to play some Arcane or Frost. I don't know which one I'll start out with. Maybe Fire, just because they can finally play Pyroclasm. I think that'd be really cool. But yeah, this is essentially the Mage. Anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video on the mages, on the Shadowlands Alpha. They didn't really change too much. It's just going to be a base mage without any of the extra uniqueness of the traits and essences, except for Arcane, as it's essentially getting baked into the spec through talents if you choose to. So I like that Arcane got one new spell, and I like that all the other specs can do Frost abilities or Fire abilities or Explosion. In terms of the base kit, I wonder what other abilities Blizzard could add before the expansion releases, but overall mages seem really strong as a spec. Seem very base, so you're not really going to have crazy new, weird, different, unique, wacky playstyles, but that means you're going to have yourself as a pretty steady going, and should probably be pretty good, solid class to play with. But anyway guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really do hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll see all of you in another one.